Downy makes clothes softer, fresher, and better. We breathe life into your laundry.
So you think you know Wix.
Cleans better with fewer sheets. Dan, you're on.
Good evening. The school committee workshop executive session of May 2nd, 2024 will now come to order. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on the Methuen Public School website. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Ryan DiZoglio.
Present.
Mary Beth Donovan.
Present.
Lori Keegan. Krista Maxwell. Daniel Shabilia.
Present.
Kenneth Willett.
Here.
Mayor Neil Perry.
So he hasn't, since the chair hasn't joined yet, we are going to need a motion to appoint the secretary as acting chair? Motion to vote. To nominate someone to run the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, and there he is.
There you go.
So we're gonna withdraw that. No, I know that, but he doesn't need the motion, he just needs to. Mr. Mayor, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Dan, sorry. I just need the motion. I need to move the gavel to you so that you can conduct the meeting.
Thank you. All right, may I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Member DiZoglio, second by Member Willett. Martha, we need a roll call.
Ryan DiZoglio.
Yes.
Mary Beth Donovan.
Yes.
Lori Keegan. Kristen Maxwell. Daniel Shabilia.
Yes.
Kenneth Willett.
Yes.
Mayor Neil Perry.
Yes.
All
Mayor
right.
Neil Perry.
Said yes.
Oh, I'm
Can you hear
sorry.
me?
Thank you.
Can we get his volume up? Because, oh, you guys are doing that? All right. And flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Member Shabilia, do you want to test that with him and see if it's any louder?
Mr. Mayor, can you give us a mic check?
Sibowitz, 1, 2, 3. Sibowitz, 1, 2, 3.
I like it. Ooh, I got louder too. I don't like that.
Yeah. It's good for me, though.
Oh, all right. Well, if you're happy, I'm happy. So we have a list of sign up for public participation, and I also have a written letter. Do you want me to read it, considering I'm echoing through the room, or does someone else want to take a crack at it? I would read it. All right. Caitlin Duffy, 34 Marjorie Street. To the members of the Methuen School Committee, my name is Caitlin Duffy. I'm a lifelong Methuen resident, parent of 2 children enrolled in Methuen Public Schools, as well as a special education teacher in the district. I am writing to advocate that Methuen School Committee seek additional funding from the City Council to fund a proposed budget that maintains school staffing, safety, supports the social emotional needs of our students, and continues to work towards academic excellence for all learners. I feel that the purpose of education is to provide students with opportunities and experiences that promote a successful future as a productive member of society. This requires a school department to invest in vetted curriculums that not only support Common Core standards, but interventions when the general curriculum isn't enough. It requires the ability to identify, catch, and support students with social emotional needs that without this support will not have the ability to access and be successful with the curriculum. How do we accomplish this? How do we implement vetted curriculums and interventions in mental health supports? We do this by ensuring that there are enough funds to maintain teachers, paraprofessionals, related service providers, adjustment counselors, guidance counselors, school psychologists, board-certified behavioral analysts, school resource officers, nursing staff, custodial staff, food service employees, and administrators. We are a village of educators despite our various roles, all an integral part to ensuring that an excellent curriculum is delivered that meets the needs of all learners, that our buildings are safe, clean learning environment, that our neediest students are fed and acknowledged, and the emotional needs are identified early with a web of support. Any reductions in staffing and supports will hinder our district vision. Methuen Public Schools students will achieve academic, social, emotional, and civic success. They will attain technological, cultural, and social knowledge to allow them to succeed in college and careers. Students will inspire the community through citizenship, leadership, and their commitment to lifelong learning, as well as our 3 goals: improve student literacy outcomes through skillful use of high-quality core instructional materials and intervention, increase prevention and intervention activities to lower prevalence rates of student anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, provide students from historically disadvantaged groups with equitable access to an excellent education. As a resident of this community, I ask that as a representative of our community that you demonstrate the district's vision for students by setting the leadership example we hope to see within our own children and within our students. Advocate for more funding from the City Council. And up first, we have Jackie McLaughlin.
Button? We're on? Yep. Okay. I just want to start off by saying...
Jackie, if I could, you have to start with your name
Oh,
and
sorry.
address.
Jackie McLaughlin, 5 Florence Ave. I'm a teacher at the Teddy. Member Willett, I just want to say I've heard you. I've sent the letter 2 or 3 times already. So, I'm proud to stand here and say that I've been teaching in Methuen for 25 years, but I am worried about the future of my students with the current state of the budget. For my entire career, I've been advocating for small class sizes in the early elementary grades, which are the most crucial for building a solid foundation of learning. Thankfully, over the past few years, I've seen my class sizes drop from a high of 26, about 7 years ago, down to 18 this year. I have Dr. Kwong and the school committee members to thank for that. It has made an incredible difference in the individual support I can offer to my students, both those that are struggling and those that need to be challenged. The implementation of our new phonics program, along with the support of the literacy PAs, have helped the Tenny show the largest growth in reading achievement of my entire career. Honestly, I'm scared of what I will walk into in August. My team has voiced our concerns of losing a first grade class. Historically, we have had a big influx of registrations over the summer, and we need to plan for that. I fear that I will have a class size of 25 again without the support of the literacy PAs. All the hard work myself and every other teacher in this district has worked toward will be washed away in one fell swoop. The needs of our students, both academically and emotionally, have increased so dramatically we can hardly catch our breath. Right now, this year, we spend so much time focusing on reteaching the behavioral expectations and attempting to redirect and regulate students' emotions that our time on learning is suffering. The intense dysregulation of students is increasing day by day. The support we have for those students is non-existent, which again impacts the learning of those students who do show readiness to learn every day. Again, I'm scared to think of what it will be like next year. The entire school staff, all teachers in all content areas, interventionists, PAs, content supervisors, special service providers, we are all maxed out. I'm not sure if you've ever read any of those books about the imaginary buckets that people carry around that you can get filled up with positive and dipped out with negative. Well, the staff are drained the minute we walk in the door. You can't pour from an empty cup, so you can't expect the school staff to pour into their students effectively if they are drained and empty. You can't run schools without people, so you need to support the proposed budget in order to keep those people in the buildings. You look at the schools and see numbers on a page with columns and graphs. When I look at the schools, I see the smiles of my first graders. It's disappointing that you will use city funds to pay for a school audit instead of investing that money back into the schools. If you want to know what could be done to make the schools better, just ask us, the staff. We'll tell you. You don't need someone from outside to come in and tell you. We need the city to step up to the plate and support the schools financially to show us that you value our hard work and keep the schools moving forward in the future. Thank you.
Alexander Sipsey.
Alexandra Sipsey, 48 Twinbrook Avenue. I am also a teacher here in Methuen at the Tenny. I'm going into my 9th year, and I'm here to touch upon the importance of the safety and the effective education of our students. The dynamics in the classrooms here in Methuen are changing. We see an increase in negative behaviors each year without matching that increase with the appropriate support. Teachers are expected to navigate multiple behaviors within one classroom, while delivering effective instruction to get students on grade level. The constant redirection and interventions provided by teachers on a daily basis is greatly impacting student learning. Our class sizes should remain small in order to manage the growing need of our students. Smaller classes means more explicit instruction and targeted interventions. We need more students, we see more students entering our schools with social, emotional, special education, and English language needs. If teachers are going to provide these students with supportive and successful educations, we need the environment to be manageable. The needs of our students must be matched with the staff to support them. I grew up in Methuen. I went to Methuen Public Schools. Many of the teachers and staff here are taxpayers of Methuen. They have invested in the community. We need to see our schools supported and students excelling. It's time to invest in our schools and our teachers. Thank you.
John Becker.
Good evening, Mayor Perry, school committee members, Dr. Kwong, Dr. Golofsky, Mr. Gosling. I'm here to implore the mayor and the city to fully fund the Methuen schools. Not just a little bit, not just the bare minimum required by law, but to fully fund to the extent this community needs. To maintain a productive and thriving school community, it requires recruiting and retaining highly trained, educated, talented, and qualified staff. Without this, we cannot address the needs of this community. Communities are dependent on and measured by the quality of their educational systems. Families choose to move into and stay in communities with robust school systems because of the quality of programs and offerings that they provide. To that end, it is critical and necessary that the city provides extensive funding to the school budget. Mayor, you have publicly stated several times over the last few months that Methuen is financially sound. If those boasts are true, then the city can afford to fully fund the school budget well beyond the bare minimum that is required by law and by means that do not rely solely on Chapter 70 state money. The city has the money to do what is right by our citizens and our students. It is conflicting to highlight financial stability in January and then lament that we are not financially stable in May. Do what is right by the city of Methuen. Fund your schools like other successful communities do. This district needs to support all students and all staff. This is how we recruit and retain quality educators, keep class sizes small, and address the needs of our vibrantly diverse community. Mayor Perry, make sure this school district is able to grow along with its financially sound city. It is the staff in the schools that create the future of Methuen. Many graduates at Methuen Public Schools are now employed in our city as educators, police officers, firefighters, and other important roles across the public sector. It is not only essential, but it is your job to keep it that way, to make sure that our schools can continue to produce the quality citizens, employees, and parents that will want to come home to Methuen as a place to work and to raise their families. You claim that Methuen is a shining example of fiscal growth as a function of the measures you have taken. Properly funding our schools is critical reinvestment as in that continued success of our city. Thank you.
Do we have any other public participants? Seeing none, at this time we'll close public participation. If you can't make the meeting, you can, in person for public participation, you can send an email to Martha Soroyas at msoroyas@methuen.k12.ma.us before 3 p.m. on the day of a school committee meeting. At this time, may I have a motion and a second to approve the transportation efficiency RFP proposal?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member DeZoglio, second by Member Donovan. Discussion?
So I think this came out of the transportation subcommittee meeting we had this week, and so it's a timely discussion to be able to move forward with it, and I can certainly let Member Shabilia speak on behalf of what we heard. Member Keegan, unfortunately, is not here, wasn't able to come tonight for conflict, but I think the subcommittee agreed that it's time and we should move forward The gentleman who we met with this week to present this, this is his niche. This is what he does. I have high recommendations from this gentleman and the work that he has done in other districts. So I will let Member Shabilia talk about what we're looking at here and what we're hoping for tonight before we talk about the budget.
We met with the consultant Thursday?
Rich Labrie on Wednesday, yep.
Wednesday. We grilled him, and everything he said and everything he laid out proved to me that this guy was the real deal. He knows what he's doing. I think he brings an expertise to this district, and he's brought to every other district, that is going to help us optimize our bus schedules, optimize our bus routes, and hopefully help us make the buses more effective and efficient for parents. I know I've stood at the top of my hill more than one time and waited for a bus, and hopefully save us some money in the long run. If we can run it more effectively, we can save money, and we all know we could use that money everywhere else. So the reason we rushed to get it on this agenda for today is he said the process is a 6 to 8 week job. If we get it on the agenda today, and if it passes, we can get him started Monday, which means we can have the finished product before the end of the fiscal year, which means we'll have the report to make the appropriate changes going into the new fiscal year, the new school year, to optimize our bus routes and impact our bottom line, hopefully. So.
In addition, the RFP, right, he'll help us with our
Right.
next contract negotiations and writing the RFP that we want to put out in the fall, which is also pretty critical for us.
Right, because we're going into our last year with this
Correct.
particular contract cycle.
Right.
So that'll be a big help in making sure that we are putting our best foot forward. Member Donovan?
When the scope of work, I think on the second page, there's a reference, it assumes, statement says, assumes full and complete cooperation of the district manager and the contractor.
Yes.
Have you had a discussion yet with NRT? Because we've had a relationship with them.
We have not, but the good news is for this gentleman that he has worked with multiple districts who have worked with NRT, and they do know, he explained that to us, that when they see a particular email from me that says we are contracted to do work with him, then they will
This one.
provide the documents he's asking for. He also does know John McCarthy very well, who we believe still sits on the board. So that will also be helpful, just because he's had a career, second career doing this work. And in addition to, there is another local district looking to do the same thing we are, who uses NRT Tremblay. So I've already connected with that district in hopes that they move forward with a proposal as well, so we could work in conjunction, in the same timeframe. It can help us and help them.
Additionally, and I can say from my own professional experience, he's involved in so many transportation RFPs around the area. There is no transportation vendor that is going to want to step on his toes too hard, because he's holding the strings when they put their bids in for other work. So he comes with a little bit more muscle than we could ever come with. Member Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in support of the proposal. There's obviously things that we can do internally that we've already done in terms of the notification via email and text of late buses. And also, I hope that we can strengthen the background check system and have it annually converted to the FBI database. But there's also things that is beyond our control. And if anybody was present at the meeting with NIT, there was a lot of contradictory information that needed to be corrected, and not forthcoming information. And I appreciate Chairman Shabilia and the Vice Chair for the Transportation Subcommittee, because I think the nucleus has to be this proposal to undertake efficiencies both within NRT and also within our school system itself.
Yep.
And I also appreciate the fact, something I had mentioned during one of the meetings of surveying, so to speak, the parents and the stakeholders, and I think there's a component that there will be outreach to the parents and stakeholders. And I think they'll do it through a statistical means. So it'll probably be a professionally done outreach to the parents and stakeholders. So I am support 100%. I think for the amount of money that we're allocating, I think it's going to derive significant cost savings to the district and also put NRT on its toes and make them accountable to our school system, to the parents and the students. So I am so supportive of the proposal. Thank you.
Martha, roll call, please.
Ryan DiZoglio,
Yes.
Mary Beth Donovan,
Yes.
Lori Keegan, Krista Maxwell, Daniel Shabelia,
Yes.
Kenneth Willett,
Yes.
Mayor Neil Perry,
Yes.
unanimous.
Okay, and without further ado, the reason the room is full tonight. Superintendent, would you please start the FY25 budget discussion?
So the memo you have, so hopefully this, I explained how this would look, and hopefully this, you understand visually what we're doing. Same memo, so everything that we presented on April 24th is on this same memo, and we just keep adding to it so you can see over time what we are doing to try to reduce the preliminary budget to the number that we need to get to. So what you have in front of you is from the 24th to today, about $1 million in reductions in the district. And so I've listed some of those in the narrative, but most importantly, there's a chart here, which I do hope, we were really going back and forth because it added up a little bit and the bullets didn't work this time. So we decided to go with more of a visual model so you could see from April 8th to April 24th is in red, right? Some of the new requests that we reduced immediately from the preliminary. So I put those in red on the charts by school and building, and then what is in blue is the work that we did to reduce even further from April 24th to today. And most of those reductions were open positions, so current positions in the budget, not new, but current positions that are vacant, maybe some being filled by contracted service providers, some not filled at all, some being, at the high school, a lot of these positions, staff take on an extra period and we pay them to do that when we have staff that we can't fill. So it's a combination of those and resignations through attrition. So the columns, I hope, are self-explanatory, but the first column is if there was any new additions on there that we eliminated, that we were hoping not to. Those are in the first column. So the new request eliminations for this round were 2 of the grade 7 teacher requests at the Tenney and Timony to keep class sizes close to 20. Those have been removed. And the CGS, the split. So if you recall, at the CGS, we've been trying to split the 7th and 8th grade newcomer Excel class because when that class gets big, it just gets more challenging. The content gets more advanced. And so we've been trying to split that class. We did remove that. And Ms. Proetti and her team is looking at some different configurations to try to service grades 5 through 8 students a little bit differently. And then looking at class sizes, we took what the committee said last week. We really focused on upper school, high school first. So what you have in front of you does not include any further reductions in K through 4 classrooms. Does include reductions in 5 through 12. All right, so what you see in blue is we went through by class size, and anywhere we could reduce where class sizes were still 25 or under, which right now we're, all 4 grammar schools, 5 through 8, are between 23 and 25 across the district with what you have in front of you tonight. right? And then the vacant and unfilled position reductions, those are the ones I'm speaking about that were in the budget, unfilled. We have staff, taking on different sections and courses to fill those. Part of our, I think I explained this in great detail last time, that we don't want to lose the teachers we have with the qualified, certified people that we have here in the district. So our challenge was to reduce as many positions as we could without having people in those positions. Because every time we lay off a person, we also have to include unemployment in that calculation. And so this was the work our team did probably over a 3-day marathon to really sort through this. And in the last column, you'll see what the result was of these changes across the board by school. So as of today, there have been 6 layoffs that staff have been notified. I laid off 3 administrative positions this week, and so I notified those staff because they are identifiable in this document. And so we had 2 principals who did the same thing. We did not feel that it was in anybody's best interest. We're talking about people now and their livelihood, that we needed to notify them if we were going to discuss this and if it was identifiable on this sheet, which again, many of these positions are now identifiable because of the titles or grade levels or actual position that might be an individual position in the district. So that's the chart that you have and what we did to get to the number that is below that. So as of right now, we have reduced the budget by 38 positions, which resulted in 6 layoff notices this week. Right, that's what's on the bottom there. I just wanted to capture that. This is not including, and I hope we were trying to figure out how to make this all really clear, right? This is not including what we did, what we expressed and showed you for the preliminary budget presentation. Because we did go through a pretty extensive exercise. The Marsh was one, where we did reduce by enrollment already to present that preliminary budget to you. So you don't see any additional in the Marsh because they're already at the numbers that I just read out to you for the other schools. Does that make sense to everybody? So I didn't include that, right? So you're gonna, overall total is gonna include everything we've been doing. FY24 compared to FY25 is gonna be a different number than this particular chart because I'm just showing you sort of step by step how we're going through this. So before I move to the next thing, are there questions about this chart, this process thus far, and then we can carry on the discussion.
This is a point of information, and you can
Yes.
clarify, because we had a prior discussion on this.
Mm-hmm.
The last time we entertained layoffs, was that during the Great Recession? Because I thought there was about 20 layoffs at that moment in time. Not during COVID, because you said there was concessions and there was an effort to maintain the employment, but
Yeah, the last time
dating back to the Great Recession, was that the last time we had significant layoffs
FY18, we had significant layoffs.
also?
Yes. The year between Mrs. Scannell and myself, we had significant layoffs that summer,
Okay.
that spring and summer.
So the Student Opportunity Act provided an infusion of money,
Yes,
and that's been very helpful.
100%. So thank you. So if I can elaborate, because we've had some conversations, but yes, so it's really challenging to have conversations with folks who don't understand the Student Opportunity Act and the formula. But yes, there had been a group advocating for many years at the state level to change the foundation formula because it wasn't equitable across districts, and it was really challenging for larger districts, urban districts who don't have the tax income to be able to support school budgets, right? And to be able to continue to support the revenue coming into the cities. So with that change, that's when the SOA was adopted in 2019 by the legislature, and we, it's readjusted the formula to account for our most needy students in the whole state, right? So you're talking about our English learners who need additional compliance staff support to learn the language, our low-income students and our special education students. So it's really focused on a proportional number. If you're in a district with high incidences of the subgroups I just said, then that formula is going to support the state aid more than a district that doesn't have those students that need those additional supports, the marginalized populations. So yes, what it has done to the urban districts is to really have an influx and this change of Chapter 70 aid that was going to be being fully implemented over a 6-year period. It was 7, COVID hit at 6. So a 6-year period where we're seeing the effect of that altering formula. How much more money is each child who is identified as English language, as high need, low income, and special education, how much is that going to bring into the district? So we're starting to see that. So yes, we're finally getting more state aid into urban centers that has been long overdue. That is 100% fact. So trying to bring those this is what my whole tenure has been, is trying to bring that change here of lowering the class sizes, bringing the support staff, right? It's changed. The environment has changed. The student needs have changed. That is not a secret. We have been talking about that for years. So yes, and the challenge this year is that formula, unfortunately, I guess I would say at this point, is based on a state inflation rate that is set, and it was set 3% lower than it was in the past 2 years. And so that really altered, we received the amount of money for SOA, but it severely altered the overall formula for the foundation budgets.
Okay, and then also, based on my recent reading of the final House Ways and Means approved plan with all the amendments,
Yep.
the House budget did not include a revision upward of the inflation rate,
Did not,
and did not include
Did not
even
address that.
studying the inflation rate.
correct.
However,
Not
the
addressed.
rainy day fund is going to increase to $9 billion in Massachusetts. So I know the Ways and Means Chair indicated in a statement, that's for the public record, that he said from a financial standpoint that winter is here. And yet, we see the revenue benchmarks are lower every single month. The migrant crisis has drawn $2 billion this year and going into next year from the budget. And you also mentioned the demographics that was mentioned at the audit meeting with the city council. ELL, low income, disability, all those factors, we became a majority-minority district. So the Student Opportunity Act was a welcomed infusion of monies. But what we're faced with is that you have a $9 billion rainy day fund that they're not tapping into, unfortunately. And if you look at the rate of growth year to year, because the last 2 years, we've had an $8 million increase in Chapter 70. The reduction was about 4.2, roughly, $4.2 million reduction. So about 50% reduction in
Right,
the
we
rate
were
of-
expecting somewhere between $8 and $1 million increase this year, again,
Yeah.
yes.
So my concern, and what I've been saying all along, we did a budget letter as a committee. And really, we're an advisory committee. The mayor and the city council will make the final determination. And I appreciate the fact that every speaker here tonight is placing the spotlight on the mayor and the city council. Because you're going to get to a certain point where right now the optimal class size is 20, and you've had about a 25% increase in some of the class sizes. And that's not acceptable to me. And the membership here tonight talked about the very intense cases that you may not have had 20 years ago in terms of mental health. And Mr. Crocker indicated that in Methuen, 1 in 5 students have a mental health-related issue. We became, again, a majority-minority district. We've had an influx of ELL, and we've had an influx with the disabled population. And like I said before, some of that definitely impacts us because it's almost like Russian roulette. You could have 2 or 3 cases of the circuit breaker. You're gonna get 75% reimbursement, but the school system has to kick in that remaining 25%. And I've always indicated that we should be at 100% on the circuit breaker. And also, the millionaire's tax was very helpful, but that's only allocated to the universal meals program.
Member Willett, I'm gonna have to ask you to make a point. I know that because we've made this
No,
speech
I
several
understand.
times over the last
I'm just
couple of
making
weeks.
some comments and questions and stuff, but.
No, I know, but we have no control over the state government.
No, but I'm making comments for the record, and I just said that, like, in terms of the millionaire's tax with the universal meals, that actually should have been like unrestricted school aid, that the local school system should have decided if we have money in an account, then maybe we could divert it to immediate needs within the school system. So, that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Donovan.
Thank you. The one thing, I don't know if we've really had discussions about it, is there any revenues, any way we can generate money? Mr. Goslin, I look to you.
My money tree is not growing.
Is there, I know, rentals at the schools, are those prices going to remain the same? Do we see any possibilities to make some money somewhere?
Before you answer that, can I add to it?
No. Yes,
No?
yes.
Piggybacking on that, Member Keegan had passed along a question about Ditson, and if we're funding that and if we're getting anything from the city occupying it. So just include that in your answer, if you'd be so kind.
I do not have a magic wand to bring in extra money, except for searching for grants that are, I like to say, all positive. There's not a second shoe where you have to match it, or after it ends, you have to keep everything for forever. So I don't have a magic tree. We are renting the ice rink, we're doing facility rentals, we're renting the auditoriums, where that brings in some funds, but it's not gonna fix our
And we have
budget.
salaries being taken out of some of those funds. Preschool revolving, our rentals facility, we have salaries taken out of those, so they don't impact the operating budget.
Just a point of clarification, the ice rink rentals, all of that money stays in the ice rink, so those
Correct.
rentals can't be brought out to fund salaries. Okay, I just want to make that sure that's on the record.
People who work there, yes. Right.
And rental facilities, same thing, has to be spent. But I'll purchase toilet paper and paper towels and stuff like that, because the facility rental people use
our stuff.
those products, et cetera, so I can justify it. But technically, those funds need to go for that purpose as well. We currently don't receive anything in terms of financial support for Ditson. The vast majority of people in there right now is the Adult Learning Center. DPW is over there, and we've asked them to, help with the cleaning and maintenance of it, but we don't receive anything financially.
The former Adult Education Center is now empty.
Yes. So, the mayor's there. The mayor and I are going to bring forth some not resolutions, they're not called resolutions here, some approvals regarding the Pleasant Valley School and the Courier Building. We will bring those to the school committee on May 13th. We do believe it's time to turn those buildings over to get them, they're not useful for us, and they will cost millions of dollars to renovate. We have been meeting, myself, Ian, Maggie, the mayor, we just can't find good uses for them and good funds to actually renovate them for any purposes that we need. We do feel that it's time. These are conversations we've had throughout the year, which we said we were gonna do. So we will bring that up for a larger discussion. So great question, Member Donovan, because those two are out there. But it is challenging because both of those buildings are not able to be occupied at the moment because of their structures. So it's not like we can put something, the city can't put something over there and we can't put something over at either of those two buildings temporarily or permanently. It's a challenge. I don't know, Mayor, if you want to say anything else about those two, but it's a
The only thing I'd add
preview.
is, it's the elephant, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So the elephant in the room is, we want to sell those buildings, Member Donovan, right? So both of those buildings will cost more to fix, to use, for anything than, and we looked, I think people are, remember, we looked at the Pleasant Valley School as the original home for the youth center, which is now tentatively scheduled to go to the central school. And we had several RFPs out and had contractors come in and take a look at the building. And the long and the short of it is, over half a dozen contractors said to us, you'd be better to knock the building down, right? It's got asbestos PV, it's got no elevator, and those are just the start of the problems, to be honest with you. So the intent would be, to turn the buildings over to the city, for the city to sell the buildings, and maybe to use some of that money to fund things back in. I do have something I want to say after, Mr. Chair, when we get a minute.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, appreciate it. So through the chair to the body and to the public participants as well, I do appreciate all the perspectives of the individuals there. I'm going to ask a series of questions, and these are just factual, so Ian, how many heads did we add in Methuen Public Schools FY24?
Through the ESSER, there was,
No, he said total.
I don't know the total off FY '24. I was looking at that number that you had mentioned at the last meeting, around number of positions in the ESSER, and that was 42, including 21 subs, as we had talked about.
Agreed.
But I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, what we ended up with.
Do we have in a number of the
I will get you that number for you.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Do we have any no knowledge of the ads for FY23 or FY22? Because I can get it from the capital, but we
Yeah.
definitely added it.
I know what you're asking, I just don't have that information with me handy. As I said, I would get the last 4 years for you.
So I want to make a point here, right? So when people say, Mr. Mayor, you're fiscally sound, we are fiscally sound, right? But we just got there. And in 2018, we were $4 million in the hole due to the school department overrunning, which is illegal in the state of Massachusetts. So we clawed back, and we are now where the state believes we should be. You don't have to take my word for it. You can look at the article in the paper from Andover last night, where the town manager quoted, what DLS recommends, you use certain free cash for. We are not, by any means, an Andover, right? We are not, by any means, some of the better, I shouldn't say better, that's the wrong word, some of the more affluent communities in Massachusetts. We are a community that has fought hard to get back where we are, right? And I say, as we are today, 52 cents of every tax dollar raised in the city of Methuen goes to Methuen Public Schools, right? And so I am just one person. listening to all the feedback. I have to answer to the taxpayers as well. And everything I do is accountable to them. And so the long and the short of it is, if this committee desires to go to city council and ask for additional funding, I am just one member of the committee, excuse me, right? And we can definitely do that. But I just want to go on record and say, I thoroughly reject any inference that the city has not done its part on behalf of Methuen Public Schools. That is a false narrative. When Chapter 70 wasn't given to the school, the city stepped up big time, and that can be verified, right? And we have proceeded to give more than net school spending each and every year, right? And it's important to understand that the Methuen Public School budget, if nothing else were to happen, right, as we have it reflected, is with the Chapter 70 and the city aid, is $6 million more than FY24. I understand that we're not getting what we projected to get. That's also the problem at the state level, because they projected revenues and now they can't make it. So I'll finish here, Mr. Chair, by saying we are plus almost 6 million in the FY25 budget as it stands today, right? So I welcome the committee to vote and decide if they want to take this matter to the city council. By all means, I'm just one member, but I am telling you that, my job would be a lot easier if I could just say yes to everything. I have to also protect the taxpayers in the city who, in many cases, are struggling. And you don't even just go down to the senior center on a given day, and the health department will introduce you to individuals who are losing their homes, who are being bumped out, et cetera, et cetera. So we are trying to be fiscally responsible. We're trying to be fair to everybody involved, and we believe we made a fair offer. If the school committee desires to change that, to increase the city funding, so be it. They can go and request city council. But I just want to make a statement that says, in my administration, we have grown Methuen Public Schools, period. That is a fact that cannot be refuted, right? And at the same time, we've clawed back financially. You will look at no other city department to show any kind of increase in headcount, anywhere close to what we've done with Methuen Public Schools, and that's because I believe in the mission of our kids. But, there has to be some relative understanding of the facts involved. And with that, I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Member DeZoglio.
Well, to piggyback off of what the mayor said, since the mayor and I, because we both came in at the same time, we were hit right off the bat 3 months in with COVID. And we did not know what funding we were going to have at all. And I remember I was in a room with a lot of teachers, and we worked out a plan, and we managed to get through it. And this time around, we relied on our state legislators, and they came up short. That's what it is. However, the thing that is bothering me about it, and I'm seeing this list of just teachers getting cut, as a teacher myself, I understand just adding 3 kids to a class changes a dynamic of a classroom. It doesn't seem that much, but it does. I had 1 kid removed he moved out of district, and just 1 kid. And that class I have has changed, completely turned around. So imagine adding 2 kids, 3 kids, possibly 5 kids. That changes such a dynamic of a classroom and the chemistry of it. Now, I understand, and I see all the teachers in the back here. I totally understand where you're coming from one teacher to another. However, we do have to manage the city we have to do right by the taxpayers too. So that's why, again, I'm asking you again, is that this is the situation we're in. I'm not lying to you. Like, this is serious. We did not know the state was gonna do that. All right? But we went through it during COVID. We can do it again. We can figure it out. All right? But I don't want teachers being laid off. That should be our last suggestion. And I think we're gonna go through that next part with what the next steps are, and then we're gonna talk again, correct, Mr. Chair? Okay, so I just wanna let people know that from my perspective. I have two sides of this, I get it, but as an elected official too, and us being here, we have to, also what the mayor has said, we are in a position right now, we cannot put the burden on taxpayers as well. All right, that's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I'm going to add my 2 cents now. Nothing you've said is wrong. Nothing Member Willett said is wrong. Nothing Member Donovan said is wrong. And I even agree with Mr. Mayor. But the unfortunate reality of where we are is, it's not good. The fact that I do know is that the schools are the cornerstone of a community. In 2015, when my then fiance and I bought our first house in Methuen, we bought because of the schools. So no one sitting at this table is saying that we're unfunding the schools because we don't believe in them. So anybody who's out there who's going to spew that rhetoric needs to get themselves checked in because they've lost their minds. That being said, there's been a couple of things that I have questions on. We're talking about these buildings. We're saying surrender them to the city for the city to sell. Who's been paying for these buildings for the last however many years?
So the buildings are, the deeds belong to the city, and the school departments have it's our obligation to maintain, operate, and run the buildings. Any capital improvement plan, right, or projects over $150,000, the city, that has to be part of our work with the city to maintain the capital improvements of the buildings. But we have been paying for the electricity and the insurance, like this. We have to maintain those buildings right now.
So
the city has to pay for the insurance for the buildings. We're paying for maintenance to keep it going so that they are insured properly,
Right.
But we have, they give them to us to use for the sole purpose of schools, and then we operate and maintain. So all of the money for utilities, for operations, for all of the buildings comes from our operating budget, right? Like, that's not a city-run building.
I understand that.
Okay.
But what I'm hearing is we've been funding a portion of that building for, 30 years now? Probably. The Pleasant Valley School. I would hope that when those do get sold, the school realizes some benefit from that, other than the mere fact of getting it off our books and off of his spreadsheets. We've also said a few times today, and over the last couple of weeks, 52 cents of every dollar goes to the schools. I don't doubt that. I've never done the math, but if the mayor tells me it's true, I take him at face value. But that doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know what other districts are doing. Is Haverhill giving 13 cents on every dollar and Andover giving 96 cents on every dollar? I need something to compare it to. Otherwise, you're telling me something is on sale and not telling me what it's being sold for everywhere else. Doesn't mean anything. The constant comparison to other departments and how the school has been funded irritates me to no end. You can't compare Methuen Public Schools or any public school and the issues that are dealt with in our classrooms, dealt with by our administrators, to the problems that are being faced in a DPW or the senior center or the police department or anywhere else in the city. It's a vastly different beast. It's apples and onions. We need to stop comparing them. They are not the same. There's nothing about them that is the same. Knowing that the mayor has been out doing his listening tours, which as a concept I absolutely commend. I think it's a fantastic thing, and probably 20 years too late at this point. But the morning after all of those, we always hear there was a group of folks outside picketing. I think that energy is misplaced. Where we should be picketing is outside of Beacon Hill, to Member Willette's point. We're standing on the wrong corners with our signs. I think, to Member Donovan's earlier point, and Mr. Goslin and I have had this conversation probably more times than he would like to, I would love to say, let's make more money. I tried to manipulate the circuit breaker funds this morning, and he had to tell me no like 43 times. I want people to understand that we are doing everything we can short of holding the city council hostage. And with that said, to quickly hit on the audit, because it's been brought up more times over the last couple of days, the audit is being funded by the city, as was mentioned earlier. I think the audit is 100% necessary because a comment that was made during public participation that says, ask us, we will tell you what's wrong with the schools, is inaccurate. And I can prove that because I have text messages from random phone numbers, Facebook messages. We all get emails that come to the General School Committee. People don't want to speak out. They don't want to talk because they're afraid, because they're concerned about their jobs, they're concerned about their reputation in the community, because we all have to work together, live together, see each other at Market Basket. I think the audit is 100% necessary. And to the mayor's point that he's made a dozen times over the last couple of months, it'll point out the good, it'll point out the bad, and hopefully it'll lead us in a direction where we can be more efficient and effective with what we have and do more, do better. And my last comment is, what can we do? So when I joined the state in 2016, it was right after an early retirement package Governor Patrick had pushed out. Can we do something like that? Can we incentivize our long-term teachers to maybe take a buyout and go to their all-inclusive resorts somewhere early?
So, yes, those are options for us. I'm sure there's other districts around us that have done them, are currently doing them for the same reason.
North Andover announced theirs yesterday.
Today, yeah, right, exactly. So it's pretty publicly out there in the communities, but it's a cost savings if we have folks who are either at or near retirement who would want to go out, and then we're able to not eliminate a position, but fill at a lower place on the step scale. So we do have that. That is something we've bandied about through this process. That is also something, Member Shabilia, a fantastic question, something that needs to be bargained. So that is something, as a group, we can discuss more in executive session, and that is something I'd have to bring to any of the collective bargaining groups that we would want to present that to. It could be any. We're not just talking about teachers. To look at the cost value, some districts pick several if there's a cost value to it. And we can discuss that, again, in more detail in executive session, if that's something that we want to do and bring to if that's an option that would save the jobs and we have enough, because it also would have to be a capacity of staff enough to impact the number we need to get to, but definitely an idea.
I think even if one or two want to do it, it has a value because you're now talking a different amount of layoffs that would have to happen.
Agreed.
Because there's no insurance that has to be paid on those for that. And whether it's a custodian or a cafeteria worker or a teacher or an administrator, hey, you've done your time, you want to retire, more power to you. I would love to go with you.
Great, so we can talk
We'll
about
talk
that
about
more
it.
in executive session.
Yes.
Yes.
But just to make sure I get the ask out, and I don't know if it goes to the mayor, I don't know if it goes to the CAFO, or if it goes to Ian. If we're gonna continue to save 52 cents of every dollar, if someone could give me some comparables,
Absolutely.
thank you very much.
I can tell you, hey, 48 cents, Dan. I don't know Andover or North Andover, but I will get them.
Appreciate that.
We can get it. We can try to get it.
Member Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I had asked for the information prior to this meeting, and I think it was included in prior budgets. but I think there's some misinformation in the community, and I'm not going to assign who said it. But we are historically below the state average for administrative costs. And if you look at comparable communities, we are below the average for administrative costs compared to those other communities. So if we could have that soon produced through the school committee, I know that was done in the past, and I think it refutes someone in the community that would indicate that we're a top-heavy administration with the Methuen Public Schools, which I think historically has never been the case. And I think if you look at the plan that's been presented by the superintendent, there are some significant reductions in the administration and layoffs related to that. So I just want to say that for the record, that you have to be very careful what you say as a community and then assign blame to an administration, because like I'm fiscally conservative. I would never put up with the top-heavy administration. And on the city side, I advocated for massive concessions from the municipal unions, and I also challenged one-time revenue streams and administrative positions, regardless if it was police, fire, DPW. I always challenged those positions. So I think in terms of the administration, and you can correct it or affirm it, we are below the state average as compared to other school districts. And if you look at comparable communities, maybe Haverhill and other communities, we are below the state average, and we're also below compared to other communities.
Yeah, so in our FY24 budget, I spent some time restructuring. We did both for some of the grammar schools, because that has been a hot-button topic since 2019, that we don't have enough curriculum oversight in our grammar schools. That was in our actual DESE audit from 2019. So we've been trying to get the model at the high school in the grammar schools. That was how DESE recommended we move forward, with more oversight of curriculum, instruction, and materials and assessment in the grammar schools. Last year, we restructured central office to also represent more of what an urban district would look like, and I did compare and presented to the school committee our current setup as compared to Haverhill, Revere, Everett, Taunton, Malden. Those are comparable districts to us as far as size of urban districts. We weren't even close to what their central office administrative structure or their school building structures were. So I did present that. Unfortunately, some of those folks that we restructured were part of our conversations this week that are no longer going to be positions in the district. So it's challenging when we're restructuring folks to oversee departments, and then we're not filling the managers of those, the director of health services or the family resource center. We have now other people who we're right back to where we were with one person trying to oversee a lot. And it's a challenge at a district level. It's a challenge at a building level. Right, the more staff we have, the more oversight we need. If we don't have the administrative support, we don't have the teachers being supported with parents and student issues. It's all cyclical. I think everybody here understands that. And so I hope what I presented to you, because this is also something that is near and dear to me during my principal tenure, during my assistant superintendent time and as superintendent. Trying to balance this is not, we can't just look at all teachers, all custodians, all administrators, all secretaries, right? We have to still operate as a system when we're looking at the budget and positions, and I hope this reflects appropriately on us doing that, right? That we're not targeting one, where we had custodial openings, we're moving people, we're eliminating positions. Same concept went through pretty much every department, is what we spent the time doing to try to come up with this scenario to be the best case right now.
And then my other question was, do we anticipate the $500,000 being encumbered in supplies for the remainder of the school year? Because that was still an amount of $500,000, because that's something that if we're going into the next fiscal year, to reduce that amount in terms of supplies, because if we still have, because the fiscal year for the state starts in July.
Correct.
I know in the federal government's October with October Madness, but if we have 2 remaining months of the school year, because June 14th, roughly, and then we have summer school, and then we prepare for the next year, but then the new budget kicks in, is it possible to reduce the supplies account or preserve the supplies and buy in advance and preserve that for the next fiscal year that we've done in the past? I know John Crafton,
Mr. Goslin can
the
speak to
business
that.
administrator, did that during tight fiscal times. And again, the dynamic is, we're not in really tight fiscal times. The unemployment rate is 2.9% in Massachusetts. There's a $9 billion rainy day fund. So the money is there, but we have to look at, again, supplies versus personnel, or grants versus personnel. And I know, and I asked the question to Ian as well, I know the revolving account is the ice ring that we cannot touch by law. And I think the cafeteria account with the $1 million, by law, we cannot touch that. Now, we can advocate maybe down the line to have that as unrestricted school aid that will allow us to shore up in deficiencies in other parts of the budget with the millionaire's tax, but that's something that we're gonna approach down the road. But if we have $1 million already in the supplies account on the cafeteria side, and we have $500,000 that has not been encumbered yet through the remainder of the school year, that's something that either if we can get an advisory from the state that we could maybe buy supplies and use it for the schools, or we can preserve and purchase in advance the supplies and use it, carry over to the new fiscal year. That's something that I would entertain, as opposed to cutting personnel further, if that's at all possible. It's not gonna be a panacea, because even if the $500,000, we're talking about over $600,000 still in proposed cuts. But at least maybe advertising in the schools was something that might be an option. And we have a policy in place for that, but that's gonna be marginal. Or if we really just focus on the supplies and really concentrate on that, I'll give the floor to Ian on that, please.
I will say in the time that I've had available, I've been working on pre-purchasing supplies, specifically copy paper, supplies that don't go bad, so that we can actually take that off next year's budget. We always try to pre-purchase our wax and our scrub brushes and all the stuff to redo the floors over the summer. We try to pre-purchase all our custodial stuff, so that July 1 runs around, we have all that stuff in stock, we don't have to wait. So we'll do that again. We'll also look at other custodial supplies that we can purchase that won't go bad in order to offset next year. Yeah, and currently, as of this minute, we have about 349,000, lied to you, 362
Okay.
available.
So there was some encumbrance since that time, but we
Yeah.
still have a
Well,
sizable
I had already
amount.
purchased some copy
Yeah.
paper and stuff like that.
Just, food for thought for the committee.
And we've
And then
already reduced
also,
supplies for
in
next year.
terms of the
We've already reduced
cafeteria
supplies
account
for
is a
next year.
$1 million in
You need to see that.
supplies. But we can't touch that unless we get a waiver from the state on that, because the
Correct.
millionaire's tax goes right into the universal meals program. We can't touch that.
Correct. We're very, Ian and I sat and looked through with a little more detail the food service, what we can and cannot, and it is it's a pretty strict restrictions, tight restrictions on what you can and cannot spend that money on, and we're doing everything we can within those restrictions. So we haven't heard otherwise that we are allowed to use those monies or who we could ask. And we've already, just to add to what Mr. Goslin just said, we have already reduced next year's supplies That's already been done before this round. We've reduced that knowing we're going to do some of this pre-purchasing. That is reflected in what you already have.
And I know that that amount is $85,000
There's more than
from
that.
from the proposed to the reduction. I thought it was 85,000.
I think we've done more than that now. Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, I'm
so-
sorry. Yeah, we've done
okay.
more than that. What you see now is reflected in additional reductions in the supplies. So I apologize if we didn't write that in the narrative.
Yeah,
but
I didn't see that narrative
We
on that.
definitely have done that.
Okay,
so
all right,
I'll-
just wanted to make sure
yeah.
on that. Okay,
Yeah, no, we heard that loud and clear last time as well with the supplies.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Two things that I missed in my monologue. I wanted to just point out, going off the chart for the last 10 years for net, non-net, Chapter 78 and city contribution, over the last 10 years, Chapter 70 funds have increased $28.3 million. Over the last 10 years, the city's contribution has increased $9.2 million. To put it into perspective, Chapter 70 over 10 years has grown at 70%, while the city's contribution has grown at 35%. I'm not gonna editorialize on what that may mean. I'm gonna put it out there as fact. I know that the 35% number has been thrown around by the city council as being egregious over 10 years. But I think it needs to be noted that it's compared to a Chapter 70 growth of 70%.
And I think for me, what's the hardest part of this process is, with the promise and the hope of the Student Opportunity Act was to rebuild and regrow and to get to a point in our district where we're not doing this. And so this has been very challenging because we have built and started to rebuild our district over the past 4 years, and I don't disagree with the mayor at all. There has been a vast difference in the partnership of creating the school budgets, of understanding the use of the funds, and the fact that, and I know I've said it publicly in past meetings the past few years, there are some urban districts where the city is not giving them all of the Chapter 70 increase because there aren't rules about how that is divvied up, and Methuen has. And so I think that's really important to note. And they have again this year. It's just the 3.8 million covered out-of-district tuition increases and nothing else in our budget to move forward. And that's the disheartening part. We've all said it, I'm not gonna repeat it. We all are in a very challenging position right now to be able to, what we've started to build over the past 3 years, we're just not able to maintain. And that is very frustrating, especially for us and me and the school committee and sitting here and all of the staff sitting behind me and everybody watching and parents in this community, because this is what we have been hopeful for and are understand is part of what should be non-negotiable, and it's negotiable again. And I think that's what is the most challenging part about this. So recognizing that, and I said it during our first preliminary budget, I will say it here, I'm a taxpayer, I live in Methuen, I am not, I don't know, I'm trying to find the right word. I'm not, presenting a budget that I do understand will be challenging for the city. I don't think I used that right, but I'm not here to put all the burden on the taxpayers, right? I'm certainly going to support the schools. My job as the superintendent is to advocate and to share with you, the school committee, and the community what this school needs. And I do believe that we have done that over time. I'm trying to continue to do that with also the knowledge and understanding that the city cannot make up the difference of what we projected the state to give us and what we need, right? I said that the first time we started. I fully understand that that is not reasonable right now, right? That is too big of a gap. So we're working with this. We're trying to figure this out. We're closer to the number at this point. We're not there yet. But that this is the position we're in, and it is real, and I'm not sure, we've been living it, I've been living it, so I know it's real. I don't know where else to pull money from. We rely heavily on Chapter 78. We rely heavily on our entitlement grants, right? We get federal entitlement grants. That's in your budget book. We have $8 million worth of salaries in those entitlement grants. Those aren't going anywhere, but we rely on that. That's what we plan for, and we, again, are entitled to those grants. Those aren't the ones that are going away. So currently, if you look at the second page, the budget comparison chart, that's the magic worksheet, first page of the magic workbook that Ian uses, and Maggie has copies of it, and the mayor, and myself, and Colleen. So as we reduce and change, this chart changes with it. So this is where we're at as of tonight, that we are at $105,390,846, which is the highlighted number is still the amount that we are away from, so $678,000, $678,258. We are away from the city given number for our budget. That was choppy. Did you guys understand what I just said? That was very choppy. I can feel myself being choppy, so I'm sorry. But so it's the highlighted number on the second page, or the third page, that we are just under $680,000, still above the city number for the operating budget. And so I have some bullets there for next steps. There's one piece of this that is going to be extremely helpful. It was extremely helpful last year. I just don't have the confirmation that I need right now to actually reduce that $678,000 number to do it. But that first bullet does explain to all of you that we did receive information from the state that we will be getting one more payment for the emergency shelter funds from the state for this year, right? This was the year we did not receive funds for, because they enrolled after October 1st of 2022-23 school year, right? So we didn't see those funds come to us for the school year. So the state, we weren't sure. It was a little rocky there that we weren't sure we were going to see any more payments. But we did receive information that we were going to get one more payment for students from March 1st to June 14th. And what that entails is our data manager sends in a really easy spreadsheet of documenting all the kids who are living in the emergency shelter that are still with us, that weren't with us October 1 of 2022. That counted for the 23, am I saying that right, 24 budget? Yes, I am, that is right. Because the 22-23 school year goes into FY24. I am waiting for an email confirmation from the Director of Finance at DESE. I don't feel comfortable unless I get that from him in writing, that yes, we are expected to receive that, because then I can actually estimate that, which I have already, because that's what I do too. Based on the data that our data manager gave me this week, it looks like we would get about $300,000 in that final payment. And then we would be able to apply that to, I think we've made a decision, either supplies or professional salaries at the CGS Marsh and High School, because that's where those kids are going at this point. If they qualify for language services, K through 8, they're going to the CGS. If they don't, they're homeschooled because of the days in is the Marsh. And then obviously if they're in high school, no matter what their service delivery is, they go to the high school. And so
Superintendent, if I can
please,
ask,
yeah,
you just said some of the students at the days in are being homeschooled?
No. I don't know of any students at the days in homeschooled.
They're homeschooled.
Sorry,
Oh, they're homeschooled, okay, I was gonna say.
I'm so
District
sorry.
school.
No,
The district school.
the location of the days in belongs in the Marsh.
Marsh District.
Yeah, because of the
Now
address.
I'm caught up, thank you.
I'm sorry, yes, so our our K through 8 kids are split between the Marsh and the CGS, and we do have some preschoolers actually now at Branch Street. But we would use those funds, and that's an appropriate use of the funds. So once we get that confirmation, that is helpful, because we can reduce that. And that, that will bring us to about 378,000 or around there, that we're still looking to reduce for FY '25. The other piece of the unknown that I did put here is that we are, sorry, my page is flipped backwards. So there are, we've discussed at great length our contracted service concerns, right? Our not being able to fill vacancies in the special education, whether it's professional staff or program assistant staff. We're trying to be a little proactive here to be able to budget for it and find out if we have quite a few vacancies in our sub-separate programming in the district. And I have asked Ms. Boyces, the Director of Special Education, to contact several of our contracted service providers to see if they have people we could confirm as set for a year and how much that would be, because we did post for those positions and we are not getting applicants. So we already posted in anticipation for these are positions that cannot be eliminated from our budget, so we posted those several weeks ago, and we do not have the number of applicants coming in that we need to fill those, so we're gonna do what we can to recruit, but I'm trying to get some numbers so that what we are preparing are more accurate than us guessing that we're gonna be using contracted services. So that is happening as we speak, so I hope to have that by tomorrow or early next week. And then also for ESY, we're also not able at this point to fill all of our positions for our extended school year, so there might be some contracted service agreements that we have to do there, which is also our FY '25 budget. So there are a couple of unknowns still out there that might have this number fluctuate a little bit.
Member DeZoglio.
So, quick question.
Yes.
Well, it's more a statement to you, because talking about Branch Street, and there are certain elected individuals, and I'm not going to talk about people in the community. Can we make a statement that Branch Street, those positions were carried over from different schools?
100%,
They were not added positions.
correct?
Okay.
Okay. Yes,
Perfect.
I can make that statement loud and clear. So Branch Street, we had 15 preschools spread out amongst the Tenney, the Timony, the CGS, and the Marsh. We carried those 15 preschools and opened with 15 preschool classrooms in September of 2023, this year.
And
Now, I had to add a preschool because of enrollment. That has nothing to do with I would have had to ask one of the principals to make a classroom for me. So it has nothing to do with the building. It's the whole point of that building is because I have 4 more classrooms that are empty to grow. Because I started in 2018, there were 8 preschools, and now there are 16 fully running preschools. So this is another place that we are growing our population. And so that was the reason that we wanted to purchase that building to begin with, because we had that growing number, and we were, in the school buildings, we didn't have any places to continue to grow full classrooms to add preschools. I mean, the Timony had 7, the Tenney had 3, I'm looking at, 2, CGS had 3, Marsh had 2, 3, didn't calculate that up in my head when I just said it, but it's 15. We started with 15, we have 16 now, and, depending on who moves in and when birthdays are, that's the hard part with preschool. It's all about when the child is 2 years and 9 months. And so we might not know the child needs services until October or January, when we have then now another 6 to 8 students who need another classroom. Yep.
Well, so, to carry on to that.
And our transitions, I'm sorry, our transitions classroom is one classroom, our 18 to 22-year-olds. Our transitions classroom was at the high school in a classroom and is now at Branch Street. There's no additional classrooms or staffing that was added because it was moved to Branch Street.
Right. And-
Yep.
So through you, and Mr. Mayor, not to
Yes.
put you on the spot, because also in the community, and just a quick rundown so the community understands how this worked. How was the purchase of Branch Street occurred? Because I feel like people just didn't watch the meetings when we had those purchasing.
Yeah.
So can you explain just a quick rundown of how it
Like
happened?
what funds were used?
Yeah, the funds.
The school
We paid-
department used ESSER funds.
Yeah. Yeah.
We paid for it with ARPA funds, Member DeZogo.
Yeah.
So we paid, I forget Superintendent, it's close to $9 million,
Yep,
right?
yep.
But that was taken out of the $46 million ARPA funds that the federal and state government provided to the city of Methuen, right? Originally, that number was only 19 million, and we protested. We saw other communities getting, like Lawrence, getting 68 million, and Haverhill getting close to that same number. We protested the impact of COVID here, and the governor responded with an increase to 46.3 million.
So and again, I just want the community to be clear about that. So not at any point, I hate using free cash because it's not free cash, it's taxpayers' money.
No.
So the rainy day fund, right, essentially, was
Correct.
never used in the purchasing of Branch Street.
No,
That is correct.
Thank you.
nope.
I want to go back real quick to the, oh, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So I wanted to ask, so Super said something, and so is this the last installment of the DESI money for the people that have been implanted in our community?
Yes, so this is the last payment, because now, anybody going forward who was accounted for and living at the emergency shelter on October 1st of this school year is in our enrollment count for the foundation formula for 25. So this is, we didn't think we were gonna get it, but we thought,
Yeah.
But that's a
No,
revolving door.
And the other thing I said related to that, Mr.
yeah,
Chair.
our whole enrollment is a revolving door, but that is, so they're considering because that was just an influx that we had no control over, and all of a sudden, we were expected
Right.
to serve 100 students when it started. So the state actually did step up and give the schools, because they weren't included in that, they actually gave us some funds at the end of last year, started to do this because they knew school districts weren't expecting this to happen. And then because none of those students I think the mayor could too, but, October 14th is when they arrived. So it was after when we sent the data to the state for October 1st enrollment, which is how our FY next year's budget is calculated. But you make a good point, Member Shabilia, because our enrollment is a moving target, and this is just what we have to deal with. So this is another a challenge in urban districts, especially when we have a churn rate, so the move-in rate and the move-out rate is constant flow. I mean, I have a staff member who's looking at our Family Resource Center every Monday morning and sends every principal, here's who's enrolling in your school this week, every week, who's coming in new, so the principals can be alerted to, oh, I've got 4 new sophomores coming in this week. It doesn't end, it never stops. At the same time we have withdrawals, it's a little bit of a different process. So, yeah, it's a challenge, because that enrollment number can change and fluctuate all year. This is the system that the state has given us.
You good, Ryan? Member Donovan.
I just have a few questions and maybe a comment or two. So, to clarify, and to build on what you said, So Branch Street now, the purchase of Branch Street not only allowed to put a whole group of people teaching the same
Correct.
subject, create a team environment for them. Not only did that happen and created a much better learning and working environment, I feel, but it also paved the way to deal with some serious crowding issues in some of our schools, and I think people forget that.
100%.
Like I know at the Tenny, it made a huge difference, and it allowed for people to spread out. I think there was safety issues that, you know, people were just sitting on top of each other. So, you know, you're right, people have short memories. And I'm so appreciative of that purchase. It wasn't frivolous at all. And my understanding is there are only rooms for 4 additional classrooms at that building now, which tells us we have a real need for early intervention and education. So that's my TED Talk. My questions now are, so we're down with this addition of $300,000. We are now we're looking to cut or find 300,000 around there, right?
Let's see. We're going with, I'm using the number of 350. My business
350?
manager just walked
Okay.
out, but we're going with 350.
I hope he comes back.
It's really
Yeah.
what we're looking at right now. If I get confirmation in the next
Yeah.
48 hours,
So there's some good news.
I think it's good news.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it until I
Until
receive
you get the check.
confirmation from the
Okay.
Director of Finance at DESE
Okay.
that, yes, we are getting a final payment, and it'll be the same amount per child from March 1st to June 14th. Then I will do it, and that's what we did last year. We
Right.
did cut our budget by the exact amount at the very end, tail end of the process, by the exact amount. We knew we were gonna get that payment in August.
Okay.
So we won't get it, but we'll get it, right? We won't have it for the start of the fiscal year, but
We know it's coming.
the payment for March is supposed to come this week or next week. So we
Okay.
know we're gonna get it in August. That's what happened last summer.
And
We
I
got it in
think,
August.
I think perspective is important, especially during these emotional times, right? This is important stuff. So we're looking at that. You see the news, Haverhill, $11 million. The school district is looking, they're dealing with that kind of deficit. North Andover, $3 million. So it could be a lot worse. This is bad, but I think it could be a lot worse. So my question to you, Dr. Kwong, is there are still some positions in the budget that are new, correct?
Yes,
That have not been eliminated,
correct.
correct? And it looks like there's a few at every school as I go through
Yes.
the budget. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything.
We have, thank you for noting that. We have tried to preserve
Yeah,
our English learner
Right.
positions, our special education positions, which I don't actually know how I would cut those because I have students going into those, and our behavior support for our staff and administrators. I have not added that to the list at this point.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to the contracted services line. I- Not helpful. I think it's worth stating that all of these positions that are open, that we need to tap into a contracted temp service, is costing us more than hiring people. And I want the people in the room to hear that. I want the people at home to hear that. I want the teachers and the parents and everyone else who's watching to understand that because we can't fill those positions, we need to go out and contract them. So we're paying a rate to this person, but we're also paying, let's call it the finder's fee, the commission to the agency that's providing them. And that's the killer. I think that if we could get our people to advocate to their social groups, their friends that are in the same world that they are, to come in for these positions, we wouldn't need to have $28.6 million allocated to contractual services because we wouldn't need 5 staffing agencies trying to fill positions because we can't.
Yes. But two things, that contracted service line is not
I-
just
I know it's
that.
a lot of
It's
other
all
stuff.
the out-of-district tuitions, is contracted service mixed in with some other contractual things that we have. And buses, I think, is in contractual services. Yeah, so there's more to that 26 million
No,
than just
and
that.
I understand that, and
But
I'm
you are correct. And,
going
you know,
into that.
this is the other challenge, and I put it here as well, you know, the other unknown to this is collective bargaining agreements. We don't have a definitive cost to plan for. So we've been able to cost out some of those and project out, but we don't have an exact number. And so there's a reality to that what that might mean as well.
You're stealing my thunder there, Dr. Kwong.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the last bullet, but okay.
The contractual services, I think it's worth saying that if we're going to direct our, let's call it agitation to the state, this should be included in there for all those out-of-district placements that are Chapter 257 rate set.
Agreed.
That got, what was it, 14?
14%
In
increase
one
in
year?
tuition last year, yes.
That's absurd.
Which, this is what I shared, right? We felt it last year, we had the funds to buffer that. We're feeling it hard again this year.
I was
that increase.
involved in the development of Chapter 257 at DCF back in 2016, and that was always built to be a 2 to 4% increase year over year.
Yeah, the Chapter 76 schools have a very different regulation process with DESE and the state, even different than our collaboratives, and I think I explained that right. So Crest Collaborative is the collaborative we belong to. Those tuitions are less typically, and their increases are what you would expect, between 3 to 4%, 5% at the highest of tuition increases to pay for staffing or increased enrollment. So, you know, member districts of collaborative, that's why you're member districts, because you can get, you know, better tuition rates than you can at a what I consider a private Chapter 766 school.
And the audit, not the audit, the consulting audit that we approved, I don't know, 2 hours ago, will hopefully impact that number as well when we.
I hope it does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm.
There's an opportunity, yes, there's an opportunity for our transportation costs to be reduced. We discussed that in our committee, you know, I don't know if we're just gonna be off a little bit on the timing, right? If it's helping us, that'll be a bonus. That will help us through the FY '25 year when, you know, we see other increases. You know, I think that would be hopeful.
And my last comment, going back to the idea of making money instead of searching for it, don't make that face. The adult programs that we have out of Branch Street, would it be a fiscally responsible or advantageous opportunity to bring in out-of-placement for that? Based on your reaction, I'm gonna go with no.
So I appreciate the thought, but that class is at maximum capacity. So if I bring in more students from somewhere else,
You gotta dip into
I
those
am
4
dipping
rooms.
into more space and people. And so right now, that class is actually probably maxed out for a little bit until students start aging out, but it is at maximum capacity right now. They are in one large space and a small space, so they're all in one space with a lot of student needs and staff. They're a fantastic addition to Branch Street as adults, and I think it was, we weren't sure how all of this was gonna work. They're on our floor, the central office floor, which has been very impactful to us as staff and them as students. I hope that makes sense.
I was sitting in.
They have great coffee carts. We've actually, a couple of our kids who've graduated out are now employees of the school department in the cafeteria because they've had that opportunity. So I think there's just, that has been a ray of sunshine to, I hope the staff feels this way, but I think they do. The staff in the program, the students, and to the adults around. You know, it's a different environment than them being in high school for so many years. They really are in a different environment, surrounded by different people and experiences.
I was sitting in Colleen's office when the paper delivery came through.
Yes, fantastic.
And it was quite the highlight of the morning.
But they're making relationships with adults who,
Yeah.
and working, they're getting work experience that wasn't as easy for them to get in the past.
Which is what led me to the ask, but
Yeah.
I understand that space is at a premium and everything else.
That's something that, and I know, Ms. Bozak and I have talked about that over the years. That ebbs and flows because that's all about a birthday, right? And how long kids are in programs. But, there are some years where it's smaller. Is there how can we fluctuate that? I'm not sure. How could we take advantage of that in whatever way we could? I don't know, but right now it is at maximum capacity. A lot of kiddos in there.
Anyone else? Member Willett?
Just a quick question, without identifying the positions cut, nothing in the budget reductions that we see so far would jeopardize implementation or enforcement of residency? Because that was a concern I have, is that I don't want a backlog, I don't want to have kids unnecessarily in the school that don't belong in the schools. That's something too, if we're removing students, that saves for the taxpayers as a whole.
Yeah, we did reduce, what you see on here, the Family Resource Coordinator. That was a management position. That just happened, so there's some conversation right now about how we maintain the systems in place that she's put in place to maintain that cycle. But the family enrollment specialists that actually see the families, do the residency checks, I have not eliminated those positions.
Okay.
So it's how do we maintain those systems? Ms. Bozak and I are talking about that and overseeing that department. And Ms. Golubsky, actually, we have a whole bunch of people that oversee the work that happens there. We're just gonna be creative in how we're gonna do that to maintain the systems that she put in place this year.
And I know every May we review the policy, and I know there's been
We're bringing that
talk
back
of
up.
strengthening the policy,
Yep.
which I support. That was the mechanism within the policy, because I drafted it back in the day. And I think it's paid huge dividends of removing students from the system. And that also impacts the taxpayers directly.
Yeah, we're gonna put the residency, I think, Member DiZoglio, you were on that at the last subcommittee. They had drafted, with myself, Mr. Lucier at the time, and the family resource specialists, that we drafted, we updated the policy, but we wanted to see if we could actually do it with the staff that we had before we actually adopted it. Because we started with one family enrollment specialist, then two, then three, we have a bilingual. So now we have the staff to be able to maintain withdrawals, enrollments, residency checks. So we will be bringing that to you at the May meeting to update the residency policy that is in the book, because it's a little different on the timing of when those residency checks are done and their double grade levels. So that's been a topic of conversation. We presented it to the school committee when we did that, but we were very concerned, Mr. Lucier and I did not want to actually, the subcommittee didn't either, until we knew we could do it. And that was that unfortunately, COVID got in the way of that too. But now we know we can do it, and we've been doing it this way for the past couple of years, and it's manageable. It's the time of year that matters, right? And I think it makes sense, the grade levels we're choosing to do.
And it was up to the discretion of the school committee to do it every May to approve changes to the policy. So it was a
So perfect.
fluid
May
and
13th is perfect.
and a mechanism. I just want to make sure, as we're going through budget cutbacks.
We'll do that on May too.
That we're not being counterproductive on the residency enforcement policy. And I want to make sure that, expressing my concerns on that, because then that impacts the taxpayers.
Yep, so we have that the policy to discuss, if the school committee wants to update that. And then if we want to continue the subcommittee, residency subcommittee or not, we do need more than one person on the committee, so we can put that on the agenda too for May, if we want to hold or add people for the subcommittee. Yep. Thank you. Yep, that's I got it, May 13th, it's on our list.
Member Donovan?
Yeah, I'm still stuck on this revenue thing, generating money. Mr. Gosling, how much do we spend for the students who do school choice, who go to other communities.
Not our money. Probably upwards of $1 million. So we have assessments.
Yeah.
So the hard part about that conversation is we don't see it,
We don't.
right? So assessments for choice and assessments for charter go straight to the city. So we have that on our cherry sheet. Maggie already knows what she's already calculated all those pieces. So she has assessments for choice, assessments for charter, and then the Greater Lawrence Regional School, and then if we have any students at Essex Aggie that are in programs that Greater Lawrence doesn't have, that all goes straight to the city. That is not that's not within our purview. We don't ever see those, we don't write checks to anybody, we don't ever see the money.
Right, we don't want to write a check, but the city does. So the city is on the hook for those funds as well, as part of their education budget, believe it or not. Yeah.
You'll see that when the city, when we go for public hearing and you get the document, you'll see operating budget is the number that we have here on this paper. Like, it'll be pretty clear. And then she has it separated by Greater Lawrence Technical School, and the city council has to vote on that, and she will put in there, I think she puts the charter and school choice assessments in there. Actually, I don't think that has to be voted on, they just have to pay it.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak on her behalf. I don't know if the mayor knows that, but it's part of the city, how she
City
calculates
assessment.
the education costs. Great question, though,
Mr.
'cause a lot
Mayor,
of
it
people
looks
don't know how
like
that
you're
works.
saying something, but there's no sound coming through.
Oh, he's speaking.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
We can hear you now.
I can't learn to use the mute button correctly. And worth noting that Greater Lawrence Tech is coming to the city council meeting next Monday and asking city council to increase the appropriation to allow Greater Lawrence Tech to buy the Benevolent Protected Order of the Elks building in Lawrence. And in his meeting with myself and the capo, we told him we absolutely could not fund that in FY25, right? Not even the slightest increase based on the CBAs and everything else that's happening, right? So, I would encourage people watch and weigh in on that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone, Mr. Willett, Member Willett?
Yep, thank you. Again, in terms of personnel versus supplies, if we reduced it to $1.5 million, could we survive that? Because then we'd be pretty close to home, because if you're talking about the $300,000 that hopefully will be incoming within the next few days, plus going to 1.5, could we swing it?
We'll put it on the list to look at, and we have to.
Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, I'll go through every line that has an increase and see if it's, because the cost of goods have also gone up. And we're already offsetting about $500,000 in this to pay for supplies out of the homeless grant as well, technology supplies. So, I mean, I'll take a look to see if I can trim some more, but I don't want to, run out of toilet paper.
Can we get a definitive answer from the state regarding that other separate account of the $1 million? Let's say, for instance,
Food services is federal funds. We can't touch it.
I thought the millionaire's tax was an infusion of money.
It all comes under the federal food
Guidelines we were
program.
looking at are so strict on what we can use
I'm
that
not,
money
so
for.
the millionaire's tax that the state approved, we fall under the federal guidelines regarding that? So we
The-
can't even
We only-
remotely
that book we
touch
looked
that?
at was only-
Food program's a federal program. We might get some from the state, but vast majority of it's federal funded.
That should have been just unrestricted school aid, the millionaire's tax.
I'm just telling you, we go through a review every year, and they go through everything with a fine tooth comb.
All right,
I can certainly ask.
okay.
Member DiZoglio.
So, just to piggyback on Mr. Willett, but I keep hearing if we get this money, we're gonna be like in the home stretch. But this is the number before all the collective bargainings are agreed upon. So I just want that to be very cleared, that, yeah, it's the home stretch until, but this is not really the definitive number until all collective bargaining agreements are done. So, I'm not gonna go any further because I don't wanna touch upon that, but I just want, especially the teachers in the room right now, that this number is not final.
Right. Yeah, no, that's my last bullet, right?
Yeah.
That we don't have a final agreement with any of our our collective bargaining agreements. So while we can make projections, which we have, that does not mean that's where we're going to land. Yes, that is real.
And,
Hence my fourth bullet.
oh, wait, I have to. And with that being said, if all of a sudden, you know what, I'm not gonna go
Yeah,
down
be
that
careful.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, be careful.
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Member Willett.
And I'm going to tread lightly too, but the superintendent did mention that there is an account established. So we're not operating completely in the dark on this. We do have it, and again, it's based on projections.
Projections.
That's all it is, projections. So to say, like, we have no money in the account slated for union agreements, that's not accurate either. So let's try to balance the statements, please. Thank you.
I want to end that conversation before we get ourselves into a little bit of a trouble. I think my statement is clear. There are projections included in this, not final, because we have no agreements with any of the bargaining units. Please.
Do want to ask you one question. I don't understand how we flirt with the line of trouble there when our sessions are now open and we have 100 people in the room for collective bargaining. I mean, what happens in a caucus room is very different than what happens on the floor.
Because if we bring up anything right now that could be strategy-driven, we are impacting our own discussion about strategy for collective bargaining, so I just want to
Well, that I agree.
caution.
I
That's all.
understand that.
I understand, what we're talking about now is public knowledge, for positions, for proposals, that's fine. I don't want to get us into a sticky position of potentially talking about strategy or ideas in public session that could impact what we do at negotiations.
Agreed. Just wanted to understand because it's
Totally
it's
get
a totally different collective bargaining world right now. So
But our conversations about strategizing are still
still
in executive
confidential,
session.
protected
Yes.
executive session, yes.
I'm
That
You're
was a
all
weird
good?
way to
Yeah,
end, but
I made my statement because it's been a public record for a long period of time on it.
Yep.
All right, well, seeing no more conversation there, is there any other business from the committee?
So
Oh, not yet?
well, I just want to summarize, because I also want to be clear, right? Your direction to me and what comes next from me to you, right? Before we clear out this agenda item, right? My team, is going to continue to work through this, get confirmation from the state about the final payment. We will continue to go line by line in everything, and look at any further personnel at the last resort. I cannot sit here and guarantee you that there won't be additional personnel reductions if we can't get to that number before May 13th. But our goal is to then present to you a number as close to, if not at, the number the city has given us on May 13th, so that we can review that with you on May 13th. And then that budget would have to be, per our discussion, would be posted publicly. Ian and his team have to post that in the media and the public at least, was it minimum 7 days, no more than 14, no less than 7. So we'd have to post it, we know by that Wednesday morning after the 13th, for our public hearing on the 21st. So that's the next step piece for us. 22nd, whatever, I'm sorry, that Wednesday is. It's a week and a half after the 13th.
No pressure.
So I think for me, I will communicate with all of you on our progress over the next few days. If we're feeling there's a need for any kind of special meeting, emergency meeting before the 13th, so it'll be sometime next week, we will communicate that, but I'm hoping not to have to do that. I'm hoping to get to where we need to get to by the 13th and be able to present to you a budget that everybody will be comfortable with and that will be the least reductions that we can. I hope this is the final list of reductions that we have for class size, for staff, and we go from there. And again, get confirmation from the state on any more supplemental funds coming in. And hope that the Senate completely alters the FY25, because that would be what makes all the difference in the world to us.
Sooner rather than later would be great. Member DeZoglio.
Just to end the summary, all I can say is to put you in a direction. I know this is very hard for you to do, and I'm asking you and your team, again, I know this is a tough situation. As academic classes, to me, is the most important thing, too. It's very important that we keep our class sizes low, the best we can, like I said, as a teacher myself, that I'm gonna read 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids do make a difference in the classroom. And I know, so I'm not speaking on behalf of this whole committee, I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a member, is that if you are going to do these, I want you guys to really focus on where you can cut to avoid academic classes to be impacted. That's all I'm asking. I want that to be on the record so everybody knows that that is my position, and I will stick to that position. Thank you.
Member Willett.
Just very briefly, is that we're not operating in a vacuum. Our case is not an isolated situation. You have many school districts facing similar circumstances of massive cutbacks and layoffs. So there's something that needs to be relayed to the state on this. If it was just Methuen, and again, I agree with the chairman, I don't want to reflect upon the past. I wasn't part of that school committee. The superintendent wasn't in her capacity at that moment. We've corrected the situation. If anybody wants to speak to us on an individual basis, I'll definitely have that conversation. But we're looking at really almost cutting to the bone, and it's going to really impact class sizes. When you increase on average 25% to a class, that's going to have a significant impact. So again, we're strictly an advisory committee in terms of the budget. We make a recommendation to the city council and to the mayor. So anybody here this evening, any parent, any concerned grandparent, any union representative, the membership, please reach out to the mayor and the city council on an individual basis, because we did it with the high school. The high school was not a done deal until we rallied the troops. And I would encourage the unions to rally the troops and see if a compromise proposal can be rendered without us cutting to the bone and approaching 25 and maybe even 26, 27, maybe 28 students if we're going in that direction. It's when is the limit? So please take that in mind. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, here, Member Donovan.
I was going to make a motion to
Oh.
adjourn.
Well, you're jumping the gun. Pump the brakes. Okay, so is there any other business from the committee? Well, we tried and it got the hook. All right, with no further business to discuss at this time, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the workshop portion of the May 2nd, 2024 meeting and go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Willett, second by Member DeZoglio. Pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 12A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of a public body, and the chair so declares, all units unaffiliated. We will not reconvene into open session at the conclusion of this executive session.
Great.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Martha, we need a roll call, please.
Ryan DeZoglio,
Yes.
Mary Beth Donovan,
Yes.
Lori Keegan, Krista Maxwell, Daniel Shabelia,
Yes.
Kenneth Willett,
Yes.
Mayor Neil Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
And the meeting is adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
Methuen.